Hello and welcome to Quick Learn Photography, straight to the point videos that teach you everything that I've learned in the last 10 years of professional photography. My name's James, and in this one I'm going to talk about tripods, why you would need one, okay? So this is one that I've used for years and years and years. I've got two or three, but I like this one because it's lightweight, it can fold down quite easily, and it can fit on the side of my camera bag. I like it. It wasn't that expensive, it was about £80. Some tripods cost a fortune, but it depends what you're doing. So obviously you might look at a tripod, even with a mobile phone, and think, well, that's pretty straightforward and obvious why someone would need a tripod. So the person I'm talking to here, if that's you, is basically what I was many years ago. Like, why do you need a tripod? It sort of seems a bit obvious, but there's loads of reasons why you would actually need a tripod. So yeah, if you're one of those people, like, what benefits, what uses, what other sort of things can I do with a tripod, then this video is for you. So the camera that's videoing me now is on a tripod. So obviously if you want to keep the frame really still, that helps a lot. Obviously if you're hand holding, it's going to move and everything. So if you're doing product photography, something that's very still, obviously put it on a tripod and the frame's not going to move, and you can replace things, whatever it is. Say it's lots of different products or whatever it is you're photographing. Perhaps you're photographing something to sell on eBay or something, and you want it to look dead still. So that's a given, really. That's why you would have a tripod. Portrait shots as well. If it's one individual person, you might want to have a tripod. You can flip the camera that way. All very good. It just keeps everything reasonably still. Now, if things are moving at all, and the shutter speed is too slow, the tripod is not going to help with that. I know that sounds like a really simple thing, but I myself years ago didn't get that concept. Things like image stabilization on a lens, you think, oh, it's going to stabilize the image, but it's not if it's going to move, if the image is going to move, say like a person walking, okay? So if your shutter speed drops too low, even on a tripod, the scene will be perfectly still, but anything moving will be blurry. If you don't know about shutter speed, check this video up here, okay? So shutter speed is really important when it comes to using a tripod, all right? So I'm going to talk about some of the things you can do. Now, let's say landscape photography, for instance. Many people go out trekking around, doing amazing nature photos and stuff, and they put up a tripod and they sit there and they wait for the perfect light or the scene and use a tripod. That's great. Nighttime photos as well, things like that. Running water photos, you know, where it's like silky water, or the river looks like glass, or any kind of motion blur, but everything else is still. You need a tripod for that sort of thing. So let's think of landscape photography for a second, okay? You may want a lot of the scene in view. So a popular aperture for landscape photography is f11, and that is really small compared to a wider aperture at the front end of the lens. If you don't know what aperture is, check this video out. So f11 is going to cut down a lot of light. There's not going to be a lot of light, but what it will do is more will be in focus, okay? There'll be a bigger plane of field in focus. So therefore, to keep the right exposure, the shutter speed is going to drop massively, quite slow, okay, quite slow, so it lets enough light in to compensate for the aperture that's gone really small. So let's say it's a sort of an overcast, cloudy day, you're photographing landscape, you're f11, and to get the right exposure, your shutter speed has to be like 1/10 of a second or something. If you hand hold that at 1/10 of a second, even your heartbeat can cause motion blur. So that's why you need a tripod. Now, if your shutter speed is too slow with nature and landscape photography, if there's a breeze and the trees are blowing or the leaves are moving, they're going to be blurry, okay? So bear that in mind. So that's one reason you need for a tripod. Now, with any of these techniques that I'm just going to talk about briefly, and I'm going to do more and more detailed demonstrations later on this sort of thing with lots of different effects, okay? But this is an overview as why you would need a tripod. One of the most important things is to put your camera on a timer, say like a 2-second timer or 5-second timer. So you frame the shot, get it in focus, press the button and let go, and then a few seconds later it will take the image. That way when you press the shot, it's not going to cause any type of little wobble or anything like that, okay? So if the shutter speed is slow, if you press the shot, it can cause a slight wobble. So let's say you want to print something really detailed of a nice scene, a landscape or buildings or something like that. Even you pressing that at a slow shutter speed can cause a bit of wobble. So that's key. Put the shutter on a timer. So when you press the button and let go, it's only the shutter that's going to go off. There's going to be no other movement on the camera. It's also really good for like slow effects, like silky water effects. Similar thing, you'd have to kill the aperture down, put a filter on. It's kind of like sunglasses for a camera, but I'm going to go into that in another video. And the shutter speed has to be really, really slow. So you get that silky water or running water that looks like silk, or light blur. So here's one I took in London years ago while I was waiting for the train. It was a carousel going round, that way should I say. So that was on a tripod at a slow shutter. Nighttime shots as well, because obviously it's dark and you don't want the ISO. You can do night shots handheld, but the ISO will ramp up and it can start causing a bit of grain in your image. If you don't know what ISO is, check this video out. So you want to keep your ISO low. Therefore, you need a longer shutter to be open, to let more light in, the chosen aperture, and then you want it on a tripod with the shutter on a timer. Yeah, I'm just trying to, yep, that's right. Trying to remember what I've said. And then you can get the nighttime shots because it's dark, okay? It's dark, so the shutter is going to drop massively. Any movement in that night shot, even on a tripod, is going to be blurry. Now you might want that movement as well, like light trails, street trails, going through the street, which look really, really cool, or movement in the traffic. Here's one I took years ago in New York, and I wanted movement with the yellow taxis. This was on a tripod, and I wanted movement, so I had the shutter speed slow enough to capture movement with the yellow taxis. I was waiting there for ages trying to get the shot, okay? And that's that. Here's another one in New York I did of people walking. I didn't have a tripod on me, but I rested it on a ledge, set it on a timer, so it was like being on a tripod, got it focused, and I wanted movement with people walking. Here's the shot now. Northern Lights, same thing on a tripod, because you want that shimmer to come across. You want it the shutter to be open for a long time. Same with star trails and things like that. You want it on a tripod, okay, because the shutter is going to be open for a long time, and any movement is going to cause blur. Sometimes you just want it for all kinds of different things, especially night shots, evening shots, or shots where you can have a very, very small aperture where it's not going to let a lot of light in. So that's why you need a tripod. So also it looks pretty cool when you put a tripod up. You look like you know what you're doing, which hopefully you will if you practice. I'm going to go into this in more detail in future videos as these videos go on and on. But yeah, you don't have to spend a fortune on a tripod to get started. Some tripods cost an absolute fortune. They're carbon fiber, they're massive. That's all very good for the type of work you might be doing. But just as a hobby, just get a basic one to start off with. Second-hand one, you can get really, really cheap tripods and get to grips with it. If you want to know a little bit about how to use one or one-to-one coaching, then get in touch with the link below, and I can talk you through a process with tripods. But it's just an overview to a beginner. Why do you actually need a tripod? Why can't you just handhold and take the picture? So like I said, I'm talking to myself years ago. So get a little tripod, have a little go, and yeah, I hope that helps.